Okay. Good morning, Clackamas County. Welcome to our issues and updates meeting today. It is Tuesday, September 17th, 2024. Gary Schmidt, what is up? Our county administrator.
Thank you, Vice Chair West. Chair Smith is out of the office today due to a family emergency. We will start with the Housing Authority. Vice Chair West will chair the meetings. All the other commissioners are present. Vice Chair, would you please convene as the Housing Authority of Clackamas County?
I will now recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as the Clackamas County Housing Authority.
This is request for consent agenda for the Housing Authority of Clackamas County. Joining you online is Housing Resident Commissioner Ann Leenstra. Good morning, Commissioner Leenstra.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here. Request for consent agenda. Item 1, approval of a resolution designating authorized officers to finalize, execute, and deliver all documents and agreements related to the Hillside Park redevelopment project, buildings A and B, funding through federal, state, local, and private funding sources. No county general funds are involved. Denise Swanson, Deputy Director of Health, Housing, and Human Services. Devin Ellen, the Planning Director for the Housing Authority. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Vice Chair, Commissioners. This is a significant milestone in a process that the Housing Authority and the Board embarked on over 5 years ago. As you know, the Hillside Park redevelopment is an ambitious project transforming a 13.7-acre site in Milwaukee from 100 outdated units into a vibrant 500-unit affordable housing community across 2 phases. Phase 1 will deliver 275 state-of-the-art units with modern amenities, including emergency resilience hubs, community rooms, and energy-efficient features. Phase 2, currently in the planning stages, will add up to 225 more units. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Devin Ellis, who is our Housing Authority Development Manager, for any additional comments.
Great. Good morning, Commissioners. Today, we are requesting the approvals necessary to close on the financing and commence construction of 175 units of affordable housing as part of the Phase 1 redevelopment of Hillside Park. With Phase 1 demolition complete and infrastructure underway on Building C, the financial closing of Buildings A and B will allow construction to commence on the last 2 buildings located in the first phase of the Hillside Park redevelopment. Housing Authority staff and the development team are underway with planning for Phase 2, which will include, as Denise noted, 225 new units, and we look forward to sharing our concept plans with the board at the November 13th policy session. So this closing resolution affirms board approval to enter into financing agreements totaling $83.4 million and designates authorized officers to finalize and execute all documents and agreements related to the acquisition, development, financing, construction, and leasing of the Hillside Park Buildings A and B on behalf of the authority and the partnership. The authorized officers include the chair of the board, the Housing Authority's executive director, and the director of housing development. With that, any questions?
Thank you, Devin. I have a couple questions, and looks like a couple commissioners want to ask some also. And you know what? I'm going to start with my colleague, Commissioner Scholl, but it looks like you'll have a few coming at you. Commissioner Scholl, go ahead.
Thank you for the information this morning. You know how I am when it comes to money. So this will give you authority to begin planning and making decisions on the construction up to $83.4 million. And anything over and above that comes back to the board for approval. Am I understanding that correctly?
That is the current estimate. I don't think it'll go over that. We haven't secured the construction loan interest rate yet. That locks like right prior to closing, but I think we were conservative in our estimate, so I don't anticipate it going over the 83.4.
Okay, and tell me, on the interest rate, that interest rate is going to be, how is that determined? Is that something that's determined by federal programs for this type of housing?
Are you talking about the interest rate on the construction loan?
Yes.
Yeah, so that is determined by the bank, and it's based on, LIBOR and going rates at the time. And then it converts, once construction is complete, into a permanent loan, and that's determined by rates applicable at that time. So we have a rate that we're holding for the construction loan, and that amount,
17 million, is that right?
well, the rate for the perm loan is 5.45 that we're holding in our projections, but that will be confirmed once we, are
Okay.
closer to closing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else here have questions? No? I'll jump in with mine. It looks like we've been doing this in phases. We've had a really great partnership with the city of Milwaukee doing this. It looks like buildings A and B, what building will this, there's 11 to A, B, C building phases. I'm not totally clear on which buildings and phases we're in. Is this the new 175 units? Is this understanding this correctly?
So in Phase 1, we have 275 units.
Okay.
The building C is in construction now, that's 100 units. And then A and B, which we're hoping to start construction in early November, close at the end of October, will be 175 units total.
Okay. This is significantly larger than the Las Flores that we just celebrated its opening, correct? It's very similar. My question also is when we talk about AMI and affordable housing, I see here that these units are primarily around 60% of the area media income, which we call AMI. And are there other units that are maybe closer to more lower income, around 30? And is that generally as low as we go, is a 30% AMI? And how do we make sure these people are have availability for this type of low-income housing?
Great question. So yes, we have 40 units that'll serve households with incomes up to 30% AMI, and those are supported by project-based rental assistance. So that, the payment standard to the property, to the landlord, is determined on those people's incomes, and it's matched to their
I'd like to make a suggestion as we look at AMI. We see 60 and acronyms and things like that, and 30. I know there are graphs that show basically like what a family of four, a person of one would fall within these different tables. Just so we understand the population and the income levels and where they're at within the socioeconomic status, it'd be beneficial, I think, to sometimes have that graph for us so we can kind of compare. Sometimes you just see percentages and acronyms. It's not as good of a visual. So I don't know if we can do that moving forward. I know it would help me. I look at we're doing some braided funding here. I think it's important for the public to understand the second largest chunk of funds to help bring this project about was actually voter approved through the Regional Affordable Housing Bond Funds of $23.5 million. Is that right?
That's correct.
I don't understand, but we see there's lots of different funding sources. We have local innovation and fast track funding, which is called LIFT funding. We have home ARP funds, which is some funding. Some of these are probably federal and state and local sources. The low-income housing tax credit equity of 26.4 is the most. I don't know where that funding comes from. I'd be interested to know that. But the Regional Affordable Housing Bond Funds, which are now exhausted, is $23.5 million of the cost to build out this entire project. Is this to the full completion, or is this just for these phases?
It's just for these buildings, these two buildings.
For these two buildings, okay. So do we have funding set aside to finish the project?
We do.
Okay. And can you speak to what the low-income housing tax credit equity is for $26.4 million?
Yeah, so tax credit, low-income housing tax credits are issued by the federal government to states on a per capita basis. And equity investors, which are typically big banks, purchase those tax credits. They provide a one-to-one tax credit against their tax liability. And they receive their tax credits over a period of 10 years. And so that's where the equity is derived from.
Okay, and there are no general funds being used to fund this project at all, correct?
That's correct.
That's my questions. Any further questions from the board?
No, good questions.
Thank you so much for bringing this update to us, and it looks like we'll have this on consent agenda. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good, thank you, and thank you, Commissioner Leinster, for joining today. Next, Vice Chair, would you please reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners?
Yeah, I will now reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners.
Next, we're jumping ahead on the agenda because we have some guests joining us today. Next is the Timberline Lodge update on the proposed gondola for that area. We have with us Jeff Constam, who's the president of Timberline Lodge, and John Burton, come on forward, please, the Director of Marketing and Public Affairs for Timberline Lodge, and Dan Marr from Marr Strategies, who will assist as needed. There's a short presentation they'd like to share on the PowerPoint, and then they will answer any questions you may have. But thank you so much for being here today, Jeff and John, and go ahead, please.
Good morning. Thank you, Vice Chair West. Thank you, Commissioner Scholl, Commissioner Schrader, Commissioner Savas. Great to see you all. Again, yeah, Jeff Constam from Timberline Lodge. And we are in the process of making a formal proposal to the United States Forest Service to create an area link between Government Camp and Timberline. It's about 3.4 miles long. But before we make that formal proposal, we've gone about creating an agenda for a series of public outreach meetings to help inform our proposal so that when we do go to the Forest Service with it, we have been around and talked to folks with concerns, looking for support, of course, but also addressing concerns that folks might have. So far, we've met with our employees at Timberline and then also with the community of Government Camp, utilizing the Citizens Planning Organization's emailing list. They invited those folks who are on that, which is most people in town, whether it's business or residents. We met a couple weeks ago at the museum up there, standing room only, and we had a really good, positive conversation and addressed some concerns there. How do I do this, John? Where is on this? Sorry. Oh, there we go. So there's some basic tenets, is what I call them, sort of foundational ideas of the things that we want to look at and the things that we think are really important and things that we perceive the community are important to our process. First of all, I'm a long-term resident of Government Camp, and livability in Government Camp is core to something that we want to be able to improve and have better. And by that, I mean more pedestrian access, more public transportation. Oftentimes, when there is congestion up there, we're sort of landlocked by Highway 26. And if there's anything we can do to help that, we want to have that be core to what we're doing. Economic development, I think, is really important. We see the opportunity for Government Camp from residential economic development to commercial economic development is very important. Part of the crux of this issue is really transportation circulation, and so what we want to do is propose helpful solutions in part to that. There are bigger overlying transportation issues, but that's really kind of the meat of this thing, of this proposal. There are resource issues, certainly, but they're pretty well known. But transportation, Highway 26, those are big, complex issues for us, and they're multi-jurisdictional. So it's it takes some time to get people aligned, and I think we're making headway there. So everyone's familiar with the rest area in Government Camp, and that's important that we come up with good solutions for those issues because they kind of conflict with some of the recreational ideas. And of course, Highway 26 safety and parking improvements. Heritage is critical to us. There's obvious heritage resources. Timberline Lodge has its own unique culture, built in 1937 by the WPA, and you guys are very well aware of all of those. Interestingly enough, though, Summit Ski Area is one of the first ski areas in the country, established in 1927, predates Timberline, and it has its own heritage, which we also want to foster and is very important. But even before that, that's rather short-term when you look at the tribal heritage and historic uses that have happened up in the corridor of Government Camp there. It wasn't so much a settlement, but it was a trading area, and Native Americans use that area for huckleberry foraging, mushrooms, bark for baskets, that sort of thing. So whatever we want to do, we want to honor that and be able to provide that access to those folks who are interested. Sustainability, of course, and then workforce housing is critical in government camp and most kind of tourism areas, and so it's a focus of part of what we want to be able to improve and focus on.
Having trouble advancing this? There you go.
Okay, thank you. So planning, there's a lot of other planning that's happening in the area, and we've been involved with quite a bit of it. Teresa Christopherson, thanks, John, has done an amazing job working with the county, working with us on the mountain in areas of transportation with the Mount Hood shuttle, of course. But she has plans that the county's undertaking that she's moving forward on, and our proposal is in sync with those, we feel. The transit hub location at Summit Pass, we're working together there. We originally looked at that as a conflict with us, and now we soon came to realize is that we're working with the county, and that's exactly what we want to do. Why not work together there? She's also been proposing a park and ride system up along the corridor and in government camp, and our proposal coincides with that. She's also received FLAP grant money for a pedestrian restroom, which the community of government camp is very interested in, and so that's great. And we've also worked with the CPO and government camp and the comprehensive plan that you've approved for our area. The rest area relocation project, that's an Oregon Solutions group, and that process is got great traction, and we look very positive to a solution to the rest area, relocating somewhere else where it doesn't conflict with the traffic in government camp. Next slide, please. So our development concept, next slide, please. Just very simply to start with, it's a phased approach, and our first phase has two parts. One contemplates the rest area still being there, and one contemplates that it's been relocated. And so the idea here is the rest area is still there, and we're working with that traffic and those folks. We propose an aerial connection between Summit there up to just kind of west of Timberline Lodge. And the only other additions would be to improve the ski patrol facility. That's a very small building, and restrooms for the skiers. Next slide, please. We currently have shuttle buses that transport people from Summit to Timberline. It's all one ski area, all one permit area, permitted under the Forest Service. It's the longest vertical of any ski area in the United States, 4,500 feet from the top of Palmer down to government camp. It's 5 miles from there. And the ski train is in effect and currently happening down to Summit. But to get back to skiing in the ski area proper, we have shuttle buses that take you back up there. Under this scenario, we would redeploy those shuttle buses and have them go through the community of government camp, and we're working with Ski Bowl so that people can ski both ski areas, and we essentially create public transportation for the community of government camp, whether you're a customer of either one of us or not. And the idea here is that people in the community who live there, we want to make it more convenient for them to leave their cars at home as opposed to get in their car and drive somewhere, and allow the community of government camp to prosper from that activity. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. This shows some parking that is at Multipore and Ski Bowl. Next slide, please. When we met with the folks in government camp, one of the largest concerns was we're playing this kind of balancing two issues here. ODOT has large concerns over creating more parking in Government Camp that might create more traffic on Highway 26. So we're trying to minimize the amount of parking that we're proposing here. We're trying to make it more convenient and more interesting for people to use public transportation, along with the county's transit hub and the Mount Hood shuttle service, than using their cars. But people, of course, are going to use their cars. And the community of Government Camp is concerned about overwhelming the public parking in Government Camp. So we're working with Ski Bowl, and this is an idea at this point, but we might need the county's help in determining how this works. But there's 3.5 acres there that is adjacent to Collins Lake that we're talking about doing either community public parking or Timberline Ski Bowl customer parking, and having a parking lot in town that that the shuttle service would utilize, and then not necessarily burdening the community's public parking. And we could do this a couple ways. We could have it be for public and have the county involved, or we could do it privately, and that's just something that we'll have to research and figure out. But we're looking for input from you folks on that. We think this is a real good opportunity, but it kind of brings in this question of our comprehensive plan in Government Camp. And the citizen, I've worked on the CPO since we had our tax increment financing district decades ago. And we've always assumed that the comprehensive plan had sort of the blessing of ODOT in relation to large mitigation on Highway 26. And so if we propose doing these, it doesn't have to be 250 spots, but whatever makes sense, parking spots, is ODOT going to claim that we need to do serious mitigation to either intersection, the east or west intersection in Government Camp? And maybe some small stuff, but it's my understanding, my feeling that we have a comprehensive plan that has been blessed by ODOT and Government Camp, and we should be able to build to that. We're not looking for any zoning changes. We're looking to be able to develop what's been previously approved. So that, I think, when we met with the Government Camp folks, this was a big issue. We need to come up with some helpful solution. This is a start to that. So next slide, please. So 1B, this second part of our first phase, assumes the rest area has been relocated. We would improve the parking to the level that we can agree with ODOT on without having to do serious highway mitigation, which isn't a lot. It's 170 spots or something like that. We would look to the county to improve their transit hub in our permit area, and consolidate our ski area activities into a building. Next slide, please. So this kind of shows a picture of post rest area relocation, and you can see, well, you probably didn't look before, but it consolidates the permit area of where the small section of where the rest area is. Next slide, please. So then after phase 1A and B, we would do another formal proposal, different proposal with the Forest Service, and that would include redeveloping the base area of the ski area. And so this is down the road, 5, 10, 15 years, something like that. Next slide, please. That would add some more parking and could look like this. So we'd want to develop something on Forest Service land, next slide, please, that has day lodge, food service, the transportation hub, but pretty minimal. Next slide, please. That's kind of a fancy picture of it. And next slide, please. What we've done is we've created a email address at Timberline when we meet with folks. And so we have question and answer periods. Dan here has been helping us capture all those and capture all the folks that are there. And then people can connect to this email address and give us their concerns so we can address them. So if that's our presentation, if you have any questions, we'd be happy to try and answer them.
Jeff and John, thank you so much for the presentation. It was very thorough. We appreciate it. Some commissioners would like to ask some questions. Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Yeah, great to see you both.
Good to see you, sir.
Once again. My question is around, I guess, the parking and understanding that you have two scenarios here, one with the rest stop as is and one without, and public use for the rest stop provides parking for a business enterprise such as the gondola to go up. That would be private enterprise. So let's just say hypothetically the rest stop is, the second one, the rest stop's relocated. Is your project capitalized enough to provide that parking, that additional parking? And what is the actual additional parking requirement that or not requirement, but, ideally in scale to the amount of customers you anticipate using the gondola, knowing that there's an assumption of some amount of transit, but likely that'll be limited. A majority will probably be people driving their own vehicles. Is there an offset for those who actually drive up the Timberline? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to try and balance. And so we have a certain comfortable carrying capacity of skiers at Timberline. So, and the lodge is only a certain size. So we want to make sure that we maintain that balance just for good customer service and don't want to overcrowd the place. So there is a point where you could have too much parking, and some of our current skiers might tell you we don't want anyone else up here. We feel that there's the opportunity to grow a little bit, but not substantially. In our pro formas, it's something like 10 or 15% on that level. So, but we also understand the future is, and this doesn't happen only on Mount Hood and Government Camp. Every sort of Front Range ski area or tourist place in the country has the same issue of whether it's the Front Range of Colorado or Cottonwood Canyon in Utah. It's very similar. But we recognize that part of the solution is mass transit. And what we want to do is make that convenient enough so people will actually want to leave their car at home. But most of our program is still going to be at Timberline, and so we're going to want to incent people to drive up there who currently do. We don't want to have a situation where no one wants to use the facilities up there. So it's a matter of maintaining that balance. What we would do when the rest area moves is we would probably take our Summit parking out of the snow park system. Snow park system is a fee-based, you buy a permit, helps pay for the plowing of public parking areas. And for that, any member of the public would use it. We would probably change the parking at Summit to a reservation, customer-based, maybe even a fee type of parking to incent people to drive up to Timberline who didn't want to pay or were just the public, as well as some of the parking in Government Camp. But the idea is down the road is that would be for customers of Timberline and the ski area.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So the 10 to 15% is what you anticipate in increased customers?
Yeah,
users,
skier business, yeah.
And that's enough to fund the gondola?
Yeah.
Okay, and the parking?
Yeah.
Okay.
And, I have a different view than maybe some other business folks on this. It's been my passion and my goal my entire life to operate Timberline. I grew up there. My father operated it. And, our goal is just to make it a better place and make our community a better place. And we certainly won't be losing money doing this, but other business people might not put the type of investment in this that I'm willing to do because of that. But we've run really good numbers on this. I'm very confident in our financial team, and it makes sense.
Okay, and one last question, just clarity. On the 10 to 50% increase in activity or customers up to Timberline, that's only Timberline. So Ski Bowl across the street, do they have a different pro forma, or are they partners in
we're
this?
separate businesses. We purposely don't have a lot of program, especially in the initial phases down at the base at Summit. And what we're counting on is that increased traffic will utilize restaurants in Government Camp that aren't part of our organization, overnight housing, retail, ski shops, and help the the economy of the local community and make it more vibrant. That's sort of one of the goals,
Okay, thank you.
without having to, build all that right away, too. Other questions?
Thank you, Commissioner Scholl.
Yes, good morning, Jeff and John.
Good to see you.
It's good to see you down here in the flatlands. This is a very exciting project. I certainly appreciate it. I know the people of the region, everybody who comes to visit one of probably our biggest tourist draw in the county, Mount Hood, will appreciate this because currently, many times when we go to Timberline, the traffic's backed up on Highway 26 trying to get up, and sometimes you have to close the road going up because there's no more parking up there. So this is going to be a tremendously positive project that will accommodate many more people. And I appreciate your investment in this project to stimulate the county tourism and Mount Hood. A question for you. On the current parking area and the ODOT restroom, how's ODOT doing in working with you on getting the wheels turning on that project?
Yeah, so we've had someone, representative from ODOT, on the Oregon Solutions team since the beginning of that, and they've been involved, and John, maybe help me with some of the history there, but they've taken it seriously, and they're aligned. There's really good alignment across multiple agencies, not only ODOT, but the Forest Service, the county and others, but maybe give a little help there.
Yeah, and specifically, how we're working with them now and as a partner in moving that rest area. They have been we were awarded some flat money. Western Federal Lands has transferred that money to ODOT. They have hired an engineering firm. In this first phase, the deliverable is due before the end of the year, and in summary, that deliverable is site identification of where this potential rest area could land. So
Okay.
we are making progress, and there is good alignment, as Jeff says.
Okay. And then one other question on the 3.5 acres next to Collins Lake. What kind of help do you need from the county on that?
So really the idea of working with ODOT and sort of the comprehensive plan of,
Okay.
so what the zoning, it's MRR, I believe, so what the zoning allows there, and whether that triggers issues with ODOT and mitigation to the either eastern or western intersections in Government Camp or even on the Loop Road or Steel Lane. There's a couple of access points into that area. And again, it's a balance of the right size. And whether we do that publicly or whether we do that privately is just a topic of conversation. I think, the Ski Bowl folks, Kirkana owns that property. And I'm not sure he would want to tie it up forever.
Yeah.
And that might have to be the case if you did something with the county.
Okay.
If we do it privately, he's probably got more flexibility down the road in case you wanted to build another level on top of the parking or something like that.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. And then start date right now for the project is?
So what we do is, our plan is to have our formal proposal by the first of the year with the Forest Service. And there's 3 levels of environmental analysis, and we're going to do the highest level, which is an environmental impact statement. And typically those take anywhere, well, they can take forever, but these days, hopefully 18 to 24 months. So we would have a decision, hopefully, from the Forest Service the beginning of the year 27.
Okay.
And then we would have a 2-year construction period. The idea is that we would do the civil, the footings, the concrete work, tree, lift line type work that summer. And then the following summer of 28, we would install the equipment. And hopefully, if everything goes well, be in operation by Thanksgiving of 28.
Wow, that's exciting. I can't wait to see this project be built. And then, how many jobs do you anticipate this will add to the area? This expansion?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it'll add a lot to the community. For our organization, maybe 24, something like that, not astronomical, but I think overall with all of the transportation issues and the local community vibrancy, I think it'll be important.
Okay, well, good, thank you. And one last comment, and that's on the workforce housing issue up at the mountain. That's something we need to work on, and I know that the Forest Service has got some things working on that. I'm not sure what their timetable is, but that's another piece. I think workforce housing is another piece that goes together with the puzzle you're building to make a more attractive, more efficient Mount Hood experience.
And just so you know, we currently have about 90 units. We have the property that's adjacent to Summit. We have some apartments above the brew pub. We master lease some stuff down in Welch's. So all told, about 130 to 150 employees in our workforce housing. And it is the reality, and we need to help facilitate that housing if we're going to be able to attract a good, healthy workforce. But it's costly too, and we certainly it's costly and it's slightly awkward. And if you think about it, if you're the employer, it's also difficult to be the landlord at the same time, and it puts, awkward situations come up, and it's not pleasant, and you lose money doing it. But it's the nature of the beast, and I don't think we have a choice. And any way we can work with, the county or the state or the feds on those types of issues, any help would be good help. I know the Forest Service is working on something down in Zigzag. We're working with Ski Bowl on some other projects too, down in Rhododendron. And so we keep trying to find more housing for employees that's available. The use to never be an issue. I think the short-term rentals, the Airbnbs have really hurt the workforce in that regard. You guys are well aware of that. But anything we can do to help make it easier to provide affordable housing for the workforce is really important.
Okay, well, thank you, Jeff, and thank you, John, for your work on this. And I think I'll see you on 5 October, right, at the lodge for the dinner and the benefit auction?
Yeah,
Looking
Friends of
forward to
Timberline,
it.
that's great. Yeah.
Thank you.
And so we do have a couple more public outreach meetings. We're meeting with, at the Mazamas Clubhouse in Portland, and then we're meeting out at Warm Springs, and at the Friends of Timberline annual meeting. So looking at something in Hood River, there doesn't seem to be much interest in this yet over there, maybe in the future. But hopefully have that wrapped by the end of the fall so that we can fine-tune our proposal to the Forest Service around the first of the year.
Thank you for, the presentation's been fantastic. Commissioners, just want to make a quick note that we need to move on with the agenda relatively soon. However, we have one more commissioner in the queue to ask you questions, but just want to make us aware of the time. And we're really excited about what you proposed today. Commissioner Schrader, with that in mind, you are up.
Hi, Jeff and
Go
John. It's
Big
nice to
Red.
see you. Yeah, go Big Red. Okay. We both went to Cornell, so we kind of always do that, that piece. This has been a long time coming since I first was here as a commissioner, and it's really great to see it all come to fruition because of your hard work and the cooperation and collaboration through the years we've had. It's just been fantastic. My daughters were ski racers up on that mountain, and still are pretty, do slopes that I can never, ever do in my entire life. I'm still a beginner. But yeah, I have a lot of good memories for that mountain. And I just want to mention, as Commissioner Shull just did, we'll be there at the Friends of the Timberline annual dinner and auction. I think I donated another one of my ravioli dinners. So awesome. Yeah, so come by, go ahead and bid on it and come by my house. That'd be great. So,
Great.
Okay, thanks.
And then just one last comment, if you give me just 2 seconds. You're all aware we had pretty serious fire at Timberline on April 18th. And I just want to commend, well, our team, but also the first responders, the Hoodland Fire Department. And then they came from, there's 5 different fire departments that showed up at Timberline and put the fire out. And I was standing in the parking lot watching it burn, and, you know, my life flashed before my eyes. It was really, really scary. But I just can't thank all of those folks enough for what they did to put the fire out. And I'm happy to say that all the damage has been fixed. There's a couple of warped boards and a few small things, but the roof is fixed and the drywall and the water damage. But it was really well done by the local Clackamas County Fire folks.
Thank you for that, Jeff and John. I know we look forward to future conversations with you. This is very exciting, and you guys have been fantastic partners with the county, so we appreciate your time today, and thank you for coming
Okay,
down
thank
to
you
Oregon
very
City to
much.
present. We
Absolutely.
appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Gary, let's get back to the rest of the agenda.
Thank you.
What's up next?
Vice Chair. Next, Vice Chair, would you please convene as the Water Environment Services Board of Directors?
I will now adjourn as the Board of Clackamas County Commissioners, and I will reconvene as the Water Environment Services District Board.
This is request for consent agenda for Water Environment Services. Item 1, approval of a contract with Hazen and Sawyer for the HVAC and fume hood project at the Tri-City Water Quality Lab. Total contract value is $270,775 for 1.5 years. Funding through Water Environment Services Sanitary Sewer Construction Funds. No county general funds are involved. Greg Geist, Director of Water Environment Services. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Gary. Good morning, directors. Can you hear me okay?
Are you on? I can't hear you very well.
It says it's live, but,
That's a little better.
okay. Good morning, directors. Greg Geist, Director, Water Environment Services. So this is a lab remodel of our HVAC, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system. Emphasis on the ventilation, as this is a laboratory. And we have fume hoods that our analysts work under. We use some pretty nasty chemicals, some strong acids, and it's really at the end of its useful life. And so we need to replace it, and this is a contract to design that, and we'd like to move forward.
Any comments, questions, or concerns? Seeing none.
Item 2, approval of a contract with Tepani for the Force Main and the Intertie 2 Pump Station Expansion Project. Total contract value is $15,467,175.50 for 2 years. Funding through Water Environment Services Sanitary Sewer Construction Funds. No county general funds are involved.
Thank you. Yes, this is an exciting project. We have a 4-mile-long force main pressurized pipeline that goes from essentially where the CarMax and Lowe's are all the way down to our Tri-City plant. We have a 20-inch force main in the ground now, and we have about half of that 4 miles of 30-inch force main that's in the ground. This finishes that project and increases the capacity of our, what we call our Intertie 2 pump station that takes all the flow from Happy Valley and brings it down to Tri-City. We did receive 7 bids on this project, so we had good bids.
Thank you. This is important infrastructure. Any comments, questions, concerns? Thank you. Seeing none.
Item 3, approval of a contract with R.L. Reimers Company for the Carver and Mitchell Creek Pump Station upgrades. Total contract value is $297,775 for 6 months. Funding through Water Environment Services Sanitary Sewer Construction Funds. No county general funds are involved.
So this is 2 pump stations out of a 9 to 10 pump station project that we have going to refurbish and standardize all of our pump stations. So we'll have the same pumps, we'll have the same controls, we'll have the same communications equipment, makes them safer, makes them more efficient, makes them easier to work on, and it's long-term cheaper to maintain.
Any comments, questions, or concerns from the board? Seeing none.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Geist, for your presentations today.
Vice Chair, will you please reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners?
I will now adjourn as the Water Environment Service District Board and reconvene as the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners. What is up, Gary?
Next is request for consent agenda for the Board of County Commissioners. First, Technology Services. Item 1, approval of a board order to authorize a purchase order with CDW Corporation for ExaGrid tiered backup storage, ExaGrid optical switch, and 3 years of support and maintenance. Total contract value is $199,999.26. and the estimated life cycle of this equipment is 5 years. Funding is through county-approved ARPA funds. No county general funds are involved. Keelan Clearly, Deputy Director of Technology Services. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Vice Chair and Commissioners. My name is Keelan Cleary, Deputy Director for Technology Services. We're requesting approval to purchase an ExaGrid backup system. This system will replace our existing backup system that was purchased in 2017 and 2019. Our existing system is approaching the limits of its space, and it's also approaching end of life. So this will allow us to purchase that replacement and make sure that we maintain good backups for the county's data.
Terrific, thank you. We have a question, Commissioner Scholl.
Good morning.
Morning.
This ExaGrid tiered backup, is this a secured system controlled only by Clackamas County and not a part of the cloud?
Correct. So the county uses multiple backup systems. It's good practice to have your backups in multiple locations with various levels of security. This is an on-prem system maintained only by the county, so we're the only ones with access to it. But it also has additional cybersecurity features built into it.
And Albert sensors are part of that?
Not at all, no.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, concerns from the board? I'm seeing none. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, Transportation and Development. Item 1, approval of a grant application to the U.S. Department of Transportation National Culvert Removal, Replacement and Restoration Grant Program for the Hackett Creek Culvert Replacements Project at East Mountain Creek Circle and East Hideaway Lane in Rhododendron. Total grant value is $6,997,600 with matching funds of $1,399,520 in county road funds. No county general funds are involved. Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Vice Chair and Commissioners. We are here to have a discussion with you, actually authorization from you to submit for a grant. We're looking to replace 6 42-inch diameter corrugated metal culverts that convey Hackett Creek under Mountain Creek Circle and Hideaway Lane up in Rhododendron. Essentially, we would replace these culverts with 2 precast, pre-stressed modular bridge structures. And what those do essentially is take a current conveyance of water, which is not fish-friendly, and make it fish-friendly. So not only are we replacing deteriorating culverts, but it also is going to improve fish passages in this particular area. Essentially, these culverts are both on the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife statewide passage barrier priority list, which make them highly, which helps us in our qualifications for the grant we're looking to secure today. The ability to secure this grant also relieves some transportation money that we would have to put up on our own should these culverts fail at some future date. Essentially, we are dealing with joints in those culverts. Some of those culverts are what's the word I want to use? Compressed, thank you so much, at the end, and so there's overtopping and a variety of issues we're trying to address with this replacement. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Good morning, Dan.
Morning.
So am I understanding, you might have already said this about it being compressed, but these culverts are at their end of life, and so this would be an upgrade and a modernization of how to have better habitat management along with the infrastructure? Is that?
That is correct. There's joint failure in these culverts, et cetera.
Okay. And so is this kind of standard best practice on how to do this moving forward? That wasn't the case when we built these originally?
Well, I can't even tell you when we built these originally, maybe in the 40s, 50s, I don't know.
Okay.
But essentially, yes. I mean, we look at opportunities for funding. And if there are grants out there that help us assist in improving our system and also improving auxiliary benefits, such as fish passes, et cetera, we try to be competitive for those grants. And we will be competitive on this grant.
Okay. Sounds fantastic. Any other comments or questions from the board? Seeing none on this issue.
Item 2, approval of a contract with Metro Presort for printing and mailing services to the Sustainability and Solid Waste Program. Total contract value is $578,677.67 for 2 years. Funding is through solid waste franchise fees and Metro Regional System fees. No county general funds are involved.
So essentially, our Sustainability and Solid Waste Group, in their waste management work, have requirements to fulfill, state requirements to fulfill for public information and notice. And essentially, we were meeting some of those requirements through the Clackamas County's newsletter, but when that newsletter went from a quarterly publication to an annual publication, which is fine, it doesn't meet all of our needs for notification requirements. So we're looking to expand that through this cooperative agreement with Metro Presort that essentially allows us to do additional public outreach regarding waste reduction and other elements that we're required to do. It sounds like a lot, but just consider the fact that I think it's essentially 188,000 households we're trying to reach. And so when you look at those mailers, and those mailers take different forms and different sizes, postage alone on something like that is $40,000 to $50,000. And so essentially what you have is a 2-year contract here to allow them to meet their the program's notification needs identified by state statute.
These mailers are required. We can't do this by internet.
They are required.
They are required.
We do internet, for those folks that may have signed up for information
Paperless.
via that, we notify them that, we take advantage of that, but direct outreach is required.
So here's what I experienced in my life, and I'm sure all my neighbors and everybody here watching experiences too. I get maybe 3 items in the mail that I'd actually like to get in the mail, and I get an insane amount that goes into recycling, and I barely glance at that. It just fills up my mailbox, and then I have to sort through all this, and it's a hassle. But Oregon state law requires us to cut these trees and print these things out and send them.
And I am great to hear that you're recycling those items, because that's through the educational outreach that we're trying to do.
But couldn't we digitally figure out a way to
I can
send
talk-
by text message, send by email, give an option to reduce the cost? It just seems a little, some people might want that mail. I think that number is very small now in today's day and age. But can we be compliant and also be a little eco-friendly with less printing and hassle in my mailbox?
I can do some research on that and get back to you.
That'd be fantastic. And then this is not billing,
No.
right? This
No, this
is
is a contract.
additional public communication and education. Okay.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, any way we can do to reduce those costs, I think would be good, and I think it would be maybe even more efficient. And maybe people might read them if it just shows up in their mailbox and not next to some other mailers trying to get you to get a credent card or sign up for AARP or whatever else comes in the mail
I
with
get the
AAA and all the rest of the mail we get. Seeing any other questions or concerns? Seeing none, thank you, Dan. Appreciate
Do
it.
you want to go forward with this item, though? Put it to consent?
Yeah, yes, yeah. I'm not going to pull it.
Thank you. The disaster management items were pulled until a future meeting. So next is Health, Housing, Human Services. Item 1, approval of an amendment increasing funding of an intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon Health Authority for the financing of community mental health, addiction treatment, recovery and prevention, and problem gambling services. Amendment value is $401,562.40 for 18 months. Total agreement value is increased to $17,967,595.75 for 18 months. Funding is through the Oregon Health Authority. No county general funds are involved. Denise Swanson, Deputy Director of Health, Housing, Human Services. Go ahead, please.
Good morning again. So this amendment is due to House Bill 5204, which allocated a little more than $400,000 to Clackamas County for aid and assist clients. Aid and assist client services are provided to criminal defendants who may be unable to understand the nature of the proceedings against them, to assist or cooperate with their counsel, or to participate in their own defense. Services may include discharge planning, a treatment designed to restore capacity, placement in appropriate community-based care, monitoring and coordination of services, and periodic assessment of the individual's capacity. These services aim to divert individuals from receiving services at the Oregon State Hospital and into community restoration services to the greatest extent possible.
I need a clarification question. I'm looking at the agenda here, and I'm seeing it, a gambling, where are we at? Which one are we looking at? I'm just,
Item 1, H3S, item 1.
for gambling services? That's my item
That's
1.
part of the title, yes.
Approval number 7, increasing funding.
Okay. Then I'll ask a clarifying question. So this is a lot about mental health, treatment, recovery, and also incorporates gambling services. I don't understand how gambling services participates in aid and assist. I guess that's, I'm not, can you clarify?
I sure can.
Thank you.
So our big giant grant from OHA
Yeah.
is under mental health, addiction treatment, recovery and prevention, and problem gambling services. So it encompasses all of those things, and aid and assist is part of that. And then with House Bill 5204, we got additional funds for aid and assist specifically for these programs. But yeah, a lot of the stuff under the Mental Health Authority is under that big title.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that clarification. Any other questions regarding this item? Seeing none, Gary.
Item 2, approval to accept a grant from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration for treatment court programs. Total value is $2 million for 5 years. Funding through the Federal Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. No county general funds are involved.
So the Clackamas County Treatment Court comprises 3 programs: Adult Drug Court, Mental Health Court, and DUI Court. Treatment court programs are considered the most successful justice intervention for people with substance use and mental health disorders. They provide an alternative to incarceration that combines behavioral health and public safety approaches to connect people involved in the justice system with individualized evidence-based treatment and recovery support services, including housing, education, and employment services. And these funds specifically will expand our health centers' recovery services in the existing treatment court programs that we just named, aiming to improve abstinence, housing stability, and social connectedness, and ultimately reducing criminal justice involvement. And in this last year, we served more than 150 people in these programs.
Terrific, thank you. Any questions, concerns? Seeing none?
Item 3, approval of an intergovernmental agreement for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Training and Employment Program. Agreement value is $162,482.36 for 1 year. Funding is through the Oregon Department of Human Services. No county general funds are involved.
So this has been an excellent addition to our recovery-oriented system of care. It provides job training and job placement services to low-income residents who are receiving SNAP benefits, which you know is our nutrition benefits. The program prioritizes individuals in recovery programs, residents who are returning from incarceration, and those who are homeless or at risk of homelessness. In fiscal year 23-24, a total of 140 residents received both pre- and post-employment services, and of those, 64% reported previous justice involvement, 33% indicated substance use disorder, 12% were single parents, 20% reported being homeless, and all of that resulted in 101 becoming employed during the program year, with average wages at $19.98, so almost $20 an hour for average wages, and 71% of those folks retain their employment after the 90-day follow-up period. So very exciting program this one is.
That is fantastic. I know we have a comment, Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, you said 90-day follow-up period, but after that, there's no data about. like, 1
I
year,
can
2
find
years.
out if we
Yeah. Could you do
stick
a
with them
long-
or not. Sure, absolutely.
And what kind of jobs are they in primarily? Is it just whatever?
I'll have to find out maybe what people's interests are, what their education is, and then whatever job training is available, but we can find out. And you know, we have a partnership with Workforce and the community college.
Who's,
Yeah.
is it through Workforce Partnership? Is it through the college? And what?
We're partnering
and-
with all of them.
And what the average, what the average income is once they get a job?
Well, it says that the average hourly wage is around $20
$20 an hour?
Yeah.
Okay, that's not, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think this is these are great outcomes. These are the kind of outcomes we want to see. I do share the question that Commissioner Schrader had around how long we're tracking outcomes. 90 days is pretty quick. I think you get a really sense of how substantial change is in supporting someone getting back on their feet again over a year.
Yep.
And I don't think we do that enough in how we measure outcomes. But overall, this is exactly the type of work we like to see, and it's a bright spot. So this is exciting. Thank you.
Yes, and I think because they're recipients of SNAP benefits, we may have additional information or ability to track them. So I'll find out for you.
It might also be interesting to say a number of these people were no longer needing SNAP.
Yeah.
Right? Like we are really helping people get back on their feet and kind of be made whole again and back in community. And that's our goal within a recovery-oriented system of care. And so I'd be interested to see how far that progression makes. That's good data. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, what's next?
Item 4, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Canby to provide elderly and disabled transportation services. Total agreement value is $150,000 for 1 year. Funding is through statewide transportation improvement funds. No county general funds are involved.
So this agreement is with the city of Canby to provide transportation services on the outside of the Canby city limits, so not on the inside, but also inside the urban growth boundary. It will expand transportation routes to better serve low-income, elderly, and disabled residents, focusing on high-needs areas while lowering fares in these communities and enhancing service frequency and reliability. Program expansion for fiscal year 24-25 aims to provide approximately 1,500 rides.
I have a question. Any other questions before mine? So are we working with Canby's local transit?
Yes.
Within that community?
Exactly.
And do we provide these type of resources? Is this a rural thing, or we provide this to a number of our 16 individual cities in the county?
You know, I have to find that out, Commissioner West. I know that specifically because Canby has the transportation within, this is now kind of connecting to the outside areas that are in the urban growth boundary, but not in the city limits where their transportation is.
Like, we have SMART too, right? There's a few of them.
Yes.
And I'm just curious if this is available.
in other
and how
cities, I can
we-
find out.
Yeah, to help support this population, yeah.
That's great, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Any other questions from anyone else? Seeing none, Gary?
All right, thank you. That's it for the consent agenda requests. All of these will be on this Thursday's business meeting agenda for your action. Next, Fair Board appointment interviews. The County Fair Board has 3 vacancies, and it is a time to do interviews for candidates. And this is a ABC that you have asked to interview the candidates. So I'd like to ask today, which of commissioners would like to participate in the applicant interviews? So, the first question.
So Gary, how has that traditionally been handled? Has it been more than one commissioner? Has it been is there more than one interview process? Is there more than one interview through the process? Can you give us a little more
Sure.
structure on that?
It's 1 or 2 commissioners only, so we don't have a quorum issue. And you just discuss amongst yourselves who likes to do it. It could just be 1 or 2.
How's it been done in the past?
We bring it up at issues today, and you all discuss it and decide.
Have
who'd
we ever
like to
had
do
2
it.
commissioners do it?
We have.
We have, and we've had 1 sometimes do it?
Yes.
Okay, so it's up to us?
Yes.
Commissioner Scholl, go for it.
Yeah, I'd like to recommend that myself and Chair Smith do it. She's very interested in the Fair Board, and I'd be happy to be the other person. I think 2 people should do it.
I have no problem with that whatsoever. Anybody else, everybody good with that? You don't need us to vote, do you?
No vote, no motion needed. And
Okay.
second, would you allow county staff and Fair Board staff to participate with you in the interviews, to take notes and be there?
Yeah.
Please do.
Okay,
Yes.
Great.
Yep, I think you have direction.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Next is review of your board business meeting agenda for this Thursday, September 19th, 2024. There is a change in the start time. Due to quorum issues, you are starting at 10:30 a.m. this Thursday, September 19th. 10:30 a.m. We've already noticed it publicly, but for those watching, 10:30 a.m. One more time, 10:30 a.m. this Thursday, September 19th. Right now, the only items you have are consent agenda that you discussed today and your normal course of business. If you have any questions on any of those items, please let me know prior to Thursday, and staff will answer it for you. Next, the advisory board appointments for the Tourism Development Council has changed since we posted this notice. So we're going to pull the item for today, and we'll bring it back next week. Next, Commissioner Schrader would like to discuss with you Measure 118, and if the board would like to take a position on that. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Fantastic, thank you.
Yeah, I think you all know what Measure 118, and it's actually is being opposed by folks across the board, the business community, nonprofits, other folks that you wouldn't even think might oppose something like this. And I think you all understand what it is. It's a tax on every phase of production along the supply chain. And Oregon Business and Industries is opposing this. They asked to see if we might do a resolution. I don't have anything in front of me now that what that might look like, but I would like to encourage you colleagues to look up Measure 118 and join me in opposing that as a commission. I think that OBI would be very happy to have that. And I've also talked to our economic development folks, and it seems across the board, our economic development professionals think this would be very difficult for our businesses and add significant cost to consumers. So,
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on your comments really quick I've publicly come out against this measure as a commissioner individual. I have supported and let those opposed to 118 know that I am in adamant disapproval of this measure. I think it will have really detrimental economic impacts on working families. It will cause localized inflation to skyrocket. And when you skyrocket the prices of basic goods, how far does that dollar really go if you give UBI? And there's a number of problems there. I'm very intrigued about this. I'm very intrigued about this board taking a formal position against Measure 118 and joining other entities in doing that, not just individual commissioners. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are. I see some lights on here. Gary, I will call on you.
Yes, I just want to read it so everyone knows what this is about. Ballot Measure 118 is on the November 2024 ballot for all Oregonians. It would amend Oregon's corporate minimum tax statutes, creating a new 3% gross receipts tax on corporations with Oregon sales over 25 million. The measure would use the revenue raised by this new tax to fund a refundable tax credit or rebate for individuals, including minor children, residing in Oregon for more than 200 days in the prior calendar year. So that's the text of the ballot measure.
Yeah, and what is that annual amount that is proposed? Can you say that?
Actually, I don't have that in my notes, but I think
I believe it's $1,600.
Yes.
For those individuals that would qualify in an annual amount. I also think that this is nothing more. This is a sales tax that's hidden, and I think that this is nothing more than another gimmick that will drive job creators and innovators out of the state, and they'll find ways to. And I think this will overall hurt those that create the jobs and hire people to do work. I think it's better to have people get jobs than to just give them free handouts of UBI. And I think we'll see big job creators cross borders to not have to endure this. Commissioner Scholl, I think you have your light on.
Yes. Okay, so in Oregon, we have a tax called the corporate activity tax, which was a sleight of hand sales tax that businesses complain about. It's very difficult. It's a tax that taxes their gross receipts and not profits. And so they can be losing money in a year and still have to pay the CAT tax. Now we have this Measure 118 that puts more pressure on businesses, making Oregon a little bit less attractive to bringing in the businesses that we need to stimulate our state economy. The other thing, too, is that I find that Measure 118, it imparts a false feeling of economic security to families because of the way this money is derived that ends up in your mailbox as a check to you and your children. It's a false feeling of economic strength of the state. Instead of us working to actually have a strong state economy that attracts business, provides jobs, where people can earn a decent living to pay their own bills, okay? That's what we need to be doing, not another sales tax, which is what Measure 118 is. Thank you.
It's also a fact that this tax will impact state revenues directly. So I think that's also an impact from our state legislature that's going to have to feel that additional pinch as we deal with big budget items going into the next long session. I don't think, and that often trickles down to unfunded mandates here at the Clackamas County level. And I think the real thing is there's so much dignity in a good day's work and earning that paycheck that individuals can have, and we need to promote an environment that promotes job creation and that promotes innovation and strong businesses that are giving good jobs to our workforce. And I think that should be our focus, and that's kind of the tide that will raise all boats in this instance. I think that this may kind of feel good, but it's a giveaway that actually does more harm than it does good. And I do like your analogy, Commissioner Scholl, that it's almost like a facade or a veneer of benefit, but when you look down, when you pump those dollars into the local economy, those dollars have less value and less purchasing power overall, and so you cause localized inflation on top of that as you pump more dollars like that into into the economy without it being created by business and jobs. So I think there's a number of flaws here that we see. Does anyone else have any comments? I am also willing to entertain a vote if we have a majority vote that wants to take a formal position on this measure from the Board of County Commissioners.
I just have one comment. This is also being funded by folks external to Oregon.
Like
so-
Measure 110 was, nice.
Yeah, so that's a concern to me too, because we seem to be a test case state for some of these ideas. And, our measure system was supposed to be a homegrown citizen kind of initiative, not giving folks from external areas an opportunity to frame things for our state, so.
That's a great point. I'll entertain a motion if somebody wants to make a motion on the board's position on this measure.
Yes. I move to direct the county administrator to work with staff to produce a recommended letter in opposition to Measure 118 for the board's consideration and signature.
I am going to get direction on what we can do, but then we may or may not have a second, but is that okay, Cheryl, if we just get a little direction on what we can? Gary?
Yes, my apologies. So as you know, public employees cannot advocate for any political issue or item. So you can take a vote of opposition, but staff cannot do anything further with it after that fact, other than, the minutes of this meeting will be public.
So we wouldn't have an actual resolution, but we'd have a formal stance.
You'd have it, correct.
A formal stance. Do you want to restate your motion, Commissioner Scholl?
I'd like to withdraw my initial motion, and I move that the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners agree to, here this morning, to make a statement that we are in opposition to the passage of Measure 118 this November.
We have a motion from Commissioner Scholl that the Board of County Commissioners officially opposes Measure 118. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
You have a second from Commissioner Schrader. Do we have any further comment or discussion on the motion before us? We do not. Clerk, please take the poll.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Vice Chair West.
Aye, the motion passes 4-0. What's next?
So certainly, Commissioners, you can tell the world you made this decision. It'll be in the minutes of the business meeting, but staff will do nothing further on this.
Okay.
We can call OBI and let them know.
Let them know that we took a formal position.
Position, yeah.
Yep.
And
Okay,
one of
very
you
good.
guys can do it.
And we can say the Board of Clackamas County Commissioners, as a board, opposes this measure.
Yes.
Okay.
Very good. All right, thank you. Final item today, Vice Chair, is Commissioner Communications.
Terrific. In order of lights. Okay, Scholl, you're up.
Okay, thank you. Last week, I had 3 meetings I want to share with you real quickly. One of them was a meeting of the Council of Forest Trust Lands Council. We discussed the Oregon Department of Forestry plan to further reduce harvest on the ODF-managed forest lands in some 16 counties in the state. The expectation that we went from 239 a couple years ago, million board feet, to 211 million board feet. Now they're looking at 185 million board feet per year, thereby potentially reducing money coming into the local share. That's the county's about $14 million. There were a few options for going back to ODF. We discussed them, and at the end of the meeting, it was decided that Commissioner Sweet, the chair of the CFTLC, he's from Coos County, would meet with the governor to work on a more reasonable agreement on this. And of course, this is also being stimulated by the ever-increasing scope of the Endangered Species Act, which is, over the years, restricting more and more grazing land, forestry land, fisheries, and mining. Would that have a negative impact on our economy in the state? The next meeting I had was the MPAC meeting, And one of the things in the meeting we discussed was the urban growth report from Metro. And some of the comments I made after talking to our staff was the urban growth report says that there's 6,000 surplus industrial acres in the UGB, Metro UGB. But the problem I mentioned was that the average industrial parcel is only 3.8 acres. The mean size is 1.7. And we're looking for 20 acres, 50 acres, 100 acres. So that needs to be looked at again. The other thing was that because we cannot offer bigger parcels of land, industrial land, we're not able to attract the businesses to Clackamas County that we'd like to see come here. The other thing, too, is the Tier 1, 2, 3 that refer to readiness of industrial lands. A lot of the lands are Tier 3, which is 30 months or more in readiness for construction. And we need to look at more Tier 1 and Tier 2 projects or land that's ready between 5 and 30 months. So we asked them to look at that again. The other thing, too, is that we need a better understanding in the UGR about the effects of slope on the attractiveness of industrial land. And most businesses, especially when they want bigger pieces of property, look at 7% slope or less. So that needs to be looked at. If we cut out of the 6,000 acres, if we cut out the parcels that are over 7%, now we're reduced down to 4,700 acres. So again, there's a lot of concern expressed in the meeting about the UGR. And one other thing I wanted to mention to you was recently, we've seen the wildfire hazard map come out pursuant to Oregon Senate Bill 762 from 2021 and Senate Bill 80 from 2023. I just want you to know that some of the counties, and here's an example from Jackson County, that have some real concerns about the accuracy of the wildfire hazard map and its potential negative impact on some of the landowners in their county. Whether or not our county wants to do that, I'm not sure, but anyway, just so you know, some of the counties are very concerned about the wildfire hazard map that came out recently. And that's all I have.
Okay, I'm just curious, Gary, is the wildfire map issue from that Senate bill, is that part of our legislative agenda? Are we talking about that and how it impacts Clackamas County?
It was and it will be, yes.
It was and it will be. I just want to ask a question I know the answer to for the public's benefit. Thank you. Commissioner Savas, you have anything for us?
No, I do not.
Okay. Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, I just want to congratulate the Oregon City Chamber of Commerce. They celebrated their 115th anniversary on Friday the 13th. I also want to give a shout out to Lakewood Theater. I was able to host a cast party for their new play, which is called RUR. Evidently, it's cutting edge. It's about robots. And, the cast usually shows up to my house at about 9:30, 10 o'clock. And the younger the cast, the longer they stay. Let me just put it that way. So I made homemade Italian food. Of course, they all took home food with them, plates of it. So I didn't have to have any leftovers. That was a positive thing. But it was a fun night, and I get to hear all the fun behind-the-scenes gossip from these plays, and enjoy these young folks in their 20s and 30s who are really kind of into the whole theater thing. And it is actually one of the things that I really, really, really enjoy doing in more ways than one. Other than that, I don't really have much else to talk about right now. And I'm just glad I can be here with all of you. Okay.
I will opine a little bit.
Okay.
I will be joining the board virtually tomorrow morning. I am going to be at the airport on my way back east to do a college visit with my niece, I cannot believe how fast they grow up. But it's exciting that she wants me to go check out a nursing program with her. She wants to be a nurse like her Uncle Ben. So, and I'm excited to be able to have those memories with her. And so I'm going to be doing that, but I will be joining virtually and still in attendance and doing the work of the county as we juggle many hats here on this board. Many of us do that. I know we're going to talk about some things that may impact the Lakewood Theater, and that's the lottery dollar funding in the week coming up in the next. When is that coming up? Tomorrow in our meeting, as we try to figure out how to navigate now that RAC isn't really a viable partner any longer with us. We've tried to figure that out, but we're now trying to chart a new path and still support the arts in Clackamas County. I know that that's important to this board. We've had a lot of robust conversations around that. And I know we're also getting ready for the legislative session here in the fall. Leg Days is coming up. I know we've been working on that with staff on our legislative priorities. That will come sure with the presentation to the public here pretty soon. We'd love to hear from the public on things you'd like this county to make a legislative priority. And then we're going into the election cycle. And so I know there's a lot happening. And I have nothing to add beyond that. Does anybody else have anything you want, Commissioner Scholl?
Yes, Vice Chair, may I add one more thing I forgot to tell you about? Last week, there's another meeting I was at for the 82nd Avenue Transit Project Steering Committee. That's for the improvement of transit along 82nd Avenue. And we talked about design costing. We talked about transit treatment along the corridor, how the different lanes might be designed. But here's the one thing I want to mention to you. Earlier in the year, we looked at using articulated electric buses for 82nd Avenue. At the meeting, TriMet mentioned that some of those electric buses would not have the required range during the day to fulfill their mission. So now Metro is looking at replacing some of those electric buses that they have not been purchased yet with hydrogen buses that have longer range. I thought you might find that interesting.
Yeah, I do. Thanks for that update. I know that the city of Wilsonville bought some electric buses with expensive grant monies. And those buses, that company went out of business. I think it's Prentera, I can't remember the name.
Yeah, well, Vice Chair West, at Home Depot, you can get a very long extension cord, and yeah. But I mentioned that on the hydrogen buses because we hear so much about electric vehicles being the way forward. And here's an example of, at least on some of the routes, that electric buses won't make it. So I asked the question, what's the difference between the price of an articulated electric bus and a hydrogen? Metro's working on that answer.
Commissioner Savas.
I just want to say that I remember being chuckled and laughed at when I brought up the issue about hydrogen, was it over 10 years ago? And no, it's coming.
Yeah.
Hydrogen's coming. It's already required, by the way. In essence, there's no other fuel to replace it, but heavy rail, freight rail, will be powered in the state of California by hydrogen by 2030, period.
Yeah.
So the technology's already out there. They've been running them, building them. They have the infrastructure there. There's infrastructure in Southwest Washington, so it's just a matter of when hydrogen becomes available here.
That's right. Good. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I believe these buses are still on the road, but Wilsonville got, I think, like $1.4 million in grant money to buy through the Federal Transit Administration. And we purchased these new powered buses. I think they were made by a company that got a lot of sweetheart government dollars. And I think I might be butchering them. I think it is Pantera is the name of the bus company. You could Google it, whatever. But they didn't last very long in the market, and now they're gone. And so now you're concerned about their bankruptcy, and then you just keep seeing these perpetual government picking winners and losers with tax dollars, and then these companies are gone. Whether it's a solar company, whether it's a different green energy boondoggle, but we need good stewardship, but we also need good stewardship not just of the environment but of our dollars. So it's been interesting to see how some of this has played out. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, just one thing. I don't think they, some of those you mentioned didn't go out of business. They just were absorbed by other, so they were bought out.
Maybe the one for Wilsonville was, but they had the news reported bankruptcy. And so if somebody else absorbed them, maybe because they had assets. But I still think we just throw millions of dollars around like it's nothing. And then you have these assets and companies that can't be supportive in the long run and they go out of business and go bankrupt is concerning to me. So I'm a little bit gun shy about electric buses. I voted incorrectly when I was on the Wills. I thought, this is grant money, this is a good idea. I look back now and I've learned a lot as a local elected. I probably would have taken a different vote, knowing what I know today. Yeah, but as we have a larger conversation about this issue, we're a little off the rails, Gary. I think everybody's made their comments today. We'll give the public their time back. And do you have any further comments as the administrator?
No, Vice Chair, thank you.
Okay, with that, this meeting is adjourned.